I never thought a split second could change everything. One moment I was standing on the edge of my roof trying to prove I could handle this myself, and the next, strong hands were gripping my belt, yanking me backward against a solid chest, and a voice was growling in my ear. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" That's how I met Marcus. Not exactly the meet cute you see in movies, but then again, nothing about that summer went the way I expected. It started 3 weeks earlier when I bought the house, my first real investment at 28, a 1920s craftsman in northeast Portland that needed work but had good bones, as they say. I'd saved for years, working my accounting job at a firm downtown, living frugally, dreaming of a place that was truly mine. The inspection had noted the roof needed attention within the next year or two, but I figured I had time. Then the June rains came, unseasonably heavy, and I woke up to water staining my bedroom ceiling. I called around for quotes. Every roofer in the city was booked solid or quoted me prices that made my stomach drop. 6,000. 8,000. One guy casually mentioned 12,000 like it was nothing. I sat at my kitchen table staring at my carefully planned budget, watching my emergency fund evaporate before my eyes. That's when I made the brilliant decision to do it myself. How hard could it be, right? YouTube existed. Home Depot had helpful staff. I was reasonably coordinated, good with my hands in that careful, methodical way that made me decent at my job. Numbers, patterns, following instructions. Roofing was just another system to learn. I spent a week watching videos, taking notes, ordering supplies. The shingles arrived on a Wednesday. I took Friday off work, planning a long weekend to tackle the project. Thursday night, I barely slept, running through the steps in my mind, visualizing each movement like an athlete before a big game. Friday morning arrived clear and bright, the kind of perfect June day that makes you believe anything is possible. I hauled my supplies onto the roof using a pulley system I'd rigged up, feeling pretty proud of my problem-solving skills. By 10 a.m, I was up there, tool belt around my waist, hammer in hand, ready to prove I didn't need to pay someone thousands of dollars for something I could figure out myself. The first hour went okay. I was careful, methodical, working on the lower slope near the back of the house where it felt safer. But then I got confident. That's always when things go wrong, isn't it? When you stop being afraid, when you start thinking you've got it figured out. I moved to the steeper section above the front porch, the part that really needed attention. I was focused on prying up a damaged shingle when my foot slipped on some loose debris. Not a big slip, just a few inches, but enough to throw off my balance. I overcorrected, shifting my weight wrong, and suddenly I was sliding toward the edge, that sick feeling of gravity taking over, flooding through my body. I didn't even have time to yell. My hands scrambled for purchase, finding nothing, and I was certain I was about to learn what a 2-story fall felt like. Then something caught me, hard and sudden. My belt. Someone had grabbed my belt and was pulling, hauling me backward with enough force that I stumbled, falling not off the roof but onto it, onto my back, and then there was a person above me blocking out the sun. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" His voice was rough, angry even, but his hands were gentle as they checked me over looking for injuries. "Are you hurt? Can you move?" I could only stare. He was maybe 35, with dark brown skin, close-cropped hair, and the kind of build that came from actual physical labour, not a gym. His grey t-shirt had a logo I couldn't read, and his arms were bare, revealing defined muscles and a few scattered scars. His eyes were dark brown, almost black in the bright sunlight, and they were looking at me with a mixture of concern and exasperation. "I'm fine," I managed, though my heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Who are you?" "Marcus Webb. I'm doing the roof next door." He sat back on his heels, still watching me carefully. "I heard someone up here, looked over, and saw you about to become a statistic. You got a death wish or something." "I was just fixing my roof." "Fixing your—" He looked around at my setup, at the haphazard way I'd laid out my supplies, at the section I'd been working on. His expression shifted from concern to something like disbelief. "You've never done this before, have you?" "I watched videos." "Oh, you watched videos." He said it slowly, like he was processing something incomprehensible. "Let me guess. The quotes were too high, you figured you'd save some money, how hard could it be?" The fact that he'd nailed it exactly made my face heat up. "Something like that." He stood, offering me his hand. I took it, and he pulled me up easily, steadying me when I wobbled. We were close for a moment, close enough that I could smell sawdust and sweat and something else, maybe cedar. He was a few inches taller than me, and I had to look up slightly to meet his eyes. Something flickered in his expression, something I couldn't quite read, and then he stepped back. "Come on, let's get you off this roof before you kill yourself." I should have been embarrassed. I should have been defensive. Instead, I felt oddly relieved as I followed him to the ladder, climbing down with shaky legs. When we were both safely on the ground, standing in my overgrown backyard, he crossed his arms and looked at me. "What's your name?" "Daniel." "Danny." "Okay, Danny, I'm going to say this once, and I need you to really hear it. You cannot do your own roof. You don't have the experience, you don't have the right equipment, and you clearly don't have the safety training. What you do have is a death wish and a YouTube account, which is a dangerous combination. I can't afford the quotes I've been getting." Something softened in his expression. "Yeah, I get that. But you also can't afford a hospital bill or worse. Look, I'm finishing up next door in about a week. Let me take a look at what you need, give you an honest quote. Maybe we can work something out." "Work something out?" "Payment plan, reduced rate. I don't know yet. Let me assess it first." He pulled a card from his pocket, handed it to me. "Marcus Webb, Webb Roofing with a phone number and email. Call me when you're ready, and in the meantime, stay off the damn roof." Then he was gone, climbing back over the fence to the neighbouring yard, leaving me standing there with his card in my hand, and my heart still racing from more than just the near fall. I didn't call him that day, or the next. Pride is a funny thing. I spent the weekend researching more, convinced I could still figure it out, but every video I watched just made me realise how much I didn't know. The terminology alone was overwhelming. Underlayment, flashing, drip edge, valley metal. By Sunday night, I was sitting in my kitchen staring at the water stain on my ceiling, feeling the weight of my own stubbornness. Monday morning I called the number on his card. He answered on the third ring, his voice professional, neutral. "Webb Roofing. It's Danny, from Friday, the guy who almost fell off his roof." A pause, then a low chuckle that did something strange to my stomach. "Yeah, I remember you. You ready for that assessment?" "If the offer still stands." "It stands. I can come by tomorrow after work around 6. That work for you?" "That works. See you then, Danny." The way he said my name, casual but somehow intimate, stayed with me all day. I found myself distracted at work, staring at spreadsheets without seeing them, thinking about strong hands catching my belt, about dark eyes full of concern. It was ridiculous. I barely knew him. He'd probably saved a dozen idiots from falling off their roofs. It didn't mean anything. Tuesday evening, I came home early, changed out of my work clothes into jeans and a t-shirt, then second-guessed the choice and changed again. By the time his truck pulled up at 6:15, I'd changed 3 times and felt like an idiot. This was a business meeting, a roof assessment, nothing more. He climbed out of a white pickup with his company logo on the side, wearing work boots, jeans, and another grey t-shirt. He had a clipboard and a tape measure, looking every bit the professional contractor. But when he saw me waiting on the porch, he smiled, and it transformed his whole face. "Hey, ready to show me the damage?" We walked around the house while he examined the roof from the ground, making notes, asking questions about when I'd noticed the leak, whether there were any other problem areas. His manner was efficient, knowledgeable, and I found myself relaxing, trusting his expertise. "I need to get up there for a proper look," he said finally. "You got a ladder?" "Same one I used." "That rickety thing? We're using mine." He pulled an extension ladder from his truck, the kind that looked actually safe and professional, and set it up with practiced ease. Then he was climbing up, moving across my roof with a confidence that made my amateur attempt look even more foolish. I stood in the yard watching him work, admiring the economical way he moved, the sureness of each step. He was up there for maybe 20 minutes, and when he came down his expression was thoughtful. "Okay, here's the situation. You need a full replacement on about 60% of it. The back section you were working on is actually in better shape than the front, ironically. The good news is it's not as bad as it could be. The bad news is it's not cheap." "How not cheap?" "For anyone else, I'd quote around 5,000. That's materials, labour, disposal, the whole thing. For you," he paused, studying me, "for you I could do it for 3,000, but I'd need something from you too." My stomach dropped. I'd heard stories about contractors who offered deals in exchange for things people shouldn't have to trade. "What kind of something?" He must have seen something in my face because he held up his hands quickly. Nothing weird, I promise. I need help with my books. My business is doing well, but my accounting is a disaster. I saw your work clothes earlier, the button-down and slacks. You work in an office, right? I'm an accountant. His smile was almost triumphant. Perfect. So here's my offer. $3,000 for the roof, and you help me sort out my business finances. Teach me how to actually track expenses, do my taxes right, maybe set up a better system. I'll pay you for that part too, but the reduced roof cost is contingent on you helping me get my shit together on the business side. It was so unexpected, so practical and reasonable, that I almost laughed. That's your offer? That's my offer. I'm good at roofing, I'm terrible at paperwork. You're apparently terrible at roofing, but presumably good at paperwork. Seems like a fair trade. When would you want to start, on the roof, I mean? I can start Monday if the weather holds. Should take 3, maybe 4 days depending. And we can start on the books whenever. I'm free most evenings. I should have thought about it longer. Should have gotten other quotes, compared options, been responsible and careful like I always was. Instead, I stuck out my hand. You've got a deal. His hand was warm, calloused, strong. We shook, and I felt that same strange flutter in my stomach that I'd felt when he'd said my name on the phone. This was just business, I told myself. A practical arrangement between two professionals who needed each other's skills. I almost believed it. Marcus started on my roof that Monday, arriving at 7 a.m. with his truck full of supplies and a younger guy he introduced as his assistant, Tyler. I'd already left for work, but I came home at lunch to check on the progress, and the transformation was remarkable. They'd already stripped half the damaged section, working with a speed and efficiency that made my own attempt look even more pathetic in retrospect. Marcus was on the roof, shirtless in the June heat, and I tried not to stare at the play of muscles across his back as he worked. Tyler noticed me first, waving from the ground where he was loading debris into a trailer. "Your roof was worse than it looked," he called up. "Good thing Marcus caught you when he did. This whole section was ready to go." Marcus turned, saw me, and climbed down the ladder. He grabbed a water bottle from a cooler in his truck, and I watched his throat work as he drank. This was becoming a problem. "How's it looking?" I asked, forcing my eyes to his face. "Like I thought. We'll have the old stuff off today. New underlayment tomorrow. Shingles Wednesday and Thursday. You picked a good colour, by the way. The charcoal will look nice with your trim." We discussed options over email, and I'd appreciated how he'd explained the pros and cons of each choice without pushing me toward the most expensive option. It was one of many small things that made me trust him. "I brought lunch," I said, surprising myself. "If you guys want to take a break. Nothing fancy, just sandwiches." Tyler's face lit up. "Man, I'd love that. We usually just hit a food cart." "Sounds good," Marcus said, his eyes on mine. "Give us 10 to clean up." We ate in my backyard, sitting on the porch steps, Tyler talking enthusiastically about a concert he was going to that weekend, while Marcus listened with the patience of someone who'd heard it all before. I learned that Tyler was 22, saving money for school, and that Marcus had been mentoring him for the past year. "Best boss I've ever had," Tyler said through a mouthful of sandwich. "Actually teaches me stuff instead of just treating me like free labour," Marcus shrugged, looking embarrassed. "You do good work, worth investing in." After Tyler went back to loading debris, Marcus lingered for a moment. "Thanks for lunch. You didn't have to do that. You're saving my roof and my budget, least I can do. About that, the books thing. You free this Friday night? I could bring over my disaster of a filing system, and you could tell me how screwed I am." Friday night. It sounded like a date, even though it wasn't. "Friday works. Come over around 7. It's a date." He said it casually, probably not meaning anything by it, but the words hung in the air between us for a moment too long. Then he smiled, that transformative smile that made my chest tight, and headed back to work. I drove back to my office in a daze, barely able to focus on the financial reports waiting on my desk. This was ridiculous. He was a contractor doing a job. The books thing was just business. There was no reason for my heart to race every time he smiled at me, no reason to feel disappointed that Tyler would be there too, acting as an unintentional chaperone. Except Tyler wouldn't be there Friday night. It would just be the two of us in my house sitting close together while I showed him how to organise his expenses. The thought made me nervous and excited in equal measure. By Wednesday, the roof was taking shape, and I'd started coming home early just to watch them work. Marcus moved across those slopes like he was born to it, confident and sure, and I found myself making excuses to bring out water or snacks just to have a reason to talk to him. Thursday evening they finished. The roof looked incredible, better than I'd imagined, the new shingles dark and even, the lines clean and professional. Marcus walked me through everything they'd done, showing me the new flashing, explaining how the ventilation worked, making sure I understood the warranty. "You did good work," I said, looking up at my house with something like pride. "That's what you're paying me for." But he looked pleased, the kind of satisfaction that comes from a job well done. "So, still on for tomorrow? Still on 7 o'clock? I'll bring the chaos, you bring the patience." Friday night arrived, and I was nervous in a way I hadn't been since high school. I cleaned my kitchen twice, set out my laptop and a notebook, made sure I had beer and coffee and snacks. This was professional, I kept telling myself. Just two guys working on business matters. Marcus arrived exactly at 7, carrying a battered cardboard box that he set on my kitchen table with a sheepish expression. Fair warning, it's bad. It was bad. Receipts mixed with invoices, bank statements from 3 different months, post-it notes with scribbled figures, tax documents that should have been filed months ago. I stared at the chaos and then at him. "How have you not been audited? Luck? Divine intervention?" He ran a hand over his head, looking genuinely embarrassed. "I'm good at roofing. I'm good at managing crews, dealing with clients, solving problems. But this stuff, my brain just shuts down." I understood that. Everyone had their strengths and weaknesses. "Okay, we can fix this. It'll take time, but we can fix it." We spent the next 4 hours sorting through everything, creating systems, setting up a simple bookkeeping software on his phone. Marcus was a quick learner when things were explained clearly, and I found myself enjoying the teaching, the way his face lit up when something clicked into place. "This actually makes sense," he said around 11, looking at the spreadsheet we'd created. "I can't believe I've been making it so complicated." "You weren't making it complicated. You just didn't have a system. Now you do." We were sitting close together at my kitchen table, both leaning over my laptop, and I was acutely aware of his proximity, the warmth radiating from his body, the smell of his cologne mixed with something uniquely him. When he turned his head to look at me, our faces were inches apart. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Seriously, this is going to change everything for my business. You're welcome." We stayed like that for a moment, and I could feel the tension building, the air between us charged with possibility. Then Marcus cleared his throat, leaning back, and the moment passed. "I should go, it's late." "Yeah, of course." I walked him to the door and we stood in my entryway, neither of us quite ready to end the evening. Finally, Marcus spoke. "Same time next week. We should review the system, make sure you're comfortable with it." "Next week, yes," he smiled, reached out like he was going to touch my arm, then seemed to think better of it. "Good night, Danny." "Good night, Marcus." After he left, I leaned against my closed door, my heart pounding. Something was happening between us, something neither of us was quite acknowledging. The question was whether we were brave enough to name it. The next Friday session turned into a regular thing. Then, the Friday after that. We'd work on his books for an hour or two, and then we'd end up just talking, drinking beer, sharing stories about our lives. I learned that Marcus had started his business 5 years ago, after working for other contractors who cut corners and treated their crews badly. That he'd grown up in Portland, had a younger sister he adored, loved hiking and hated cooking. He learned that I'd moved to Portland from a small town in eastern Oregon, that my family didn't quite know what to do with me, that I'd always played it safe until buying this house. We didn't talk about relationships, about dating, about anything that might force us to acknowledge what was growing between us. Until one Friday in late July when everything changed. We'd finished with the books early, and Marcus had suggested we sit on my back porch with beers, enjoying the warm evening. We were talking about nothing important, just easy conversation, when he said, "Can I ask you something personal?" My stomach tightened. "Sure. You seeing anyone?" The question hung in the air. I could deflect, make a joke, keep things safely in the friend zone. Instead I said, "No. You?" "No." He was quiet for a moment, then, "I'm not good at this. At reading signals, at knowing when something is just friendship and when it's more. But Danny, these past couple months I feel like maybe it's been more. Or maybe I'm completely misreading everything and I'm about to make things incredibly awkward." My heart was hammering. "You're not misreading anything." He turned to look at me, and his expression was vulnerable in a way I'd never seen. Yeah? Yeah. I just didn't know if you felt the same way, if I was imagining things. You weren't imagining things. He shifted closer, his knee touching mine. I've been thinking about this since that first day, since I pulled you back from the edge and you looked up at me like I'd hung the moon. I just didn't want to assume, didn't want to make you uncomfortable. You don't make me uncomfortable. You make me nervous, but in a good way. He smiled at that, reaching out to take my hand. His palm was warm, calloused, strong. So what do we do about this? I don't know. I've never been good at the brave thing, at taking risks. You bought a house, climbed on a roof despite being terrified. That's pretty brave. That's different. That's practical stuff. This is... I gestured between us, unable to find the words. This is scarier, he finished. I get it. But Danny, I really like you. I like spending time with you. I like the way you explain things, the way you listen, the way you get excited about organising spreadsheets. I like your smile and your laugh and the way you care about doing things right. And I'd really like to kiss you if that's okay. It was more than okay. It was everything I'd been wanting but too afraid to ask for. Yes. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to change my mind, but I didn't want to. When his lips met mine, soft and sure, it felt like coming home. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, and then deeper as we both gave in to what we'd been holding back. His hand came up to cup my face, thumb stroking my cheek, and I felt something unlock in my chest, some tight knot of fear finally releasing. When we pulled apart, he was smiling. I've wanted to do that for weeks. Me too. So we're doing this. Really doing this. I thought about all the times I'd played it safe, chosen the careful path, avoided risk. Then I thought about how alive I felt right now, how right this was. We're doing this. That was 2 years ago. We're still doing this. Marcus moved in 6 months after that first kiss, after enough sleepovers that it seemed silly to maintain 2 households. His business is thriving now, organised and efficient, and I've started taking on a few other small business clients on the side, discovering I actually enjoy the teaching aspect. We still joke about how we met, about my disastrous attempt at DIY roofing. The house is fully renovated now, every project done right, usually with Marcus's help and expertise. But sometimes when we're up on the roof together, checking gutters or hanging Christmas lights, I'll pretend to slip just a little, just enough for him to catch me. And he always does. Total char count, 24,847.